So what you're actually talking about is kind of like an existential angst. Some people would call it, though wrongly so, the dark night of the soul, or others would talk about it in the sense of um, just not liking what we see, that we're expecting or wanting something else. But the Buddha's path is no, let's stop looking and longing and hoping and wanting and start looking at that longing itself, that hoping, that uh, wanting things to be different than they are. In other words, that dissatisfaction. And the best place to look at that dissatisfaction is not when we're in that dissatisfaction, but in fact, the time to understand it and look at it clearly is when we're in a state of satisfaction. And so that's kind of a catch 22. How am I going to be able to get myself out of dissatisfaction so that I can see that satisfaction if I have to be out of dissatisfaction in order to see it? The answer is we will practice. And this is what your practice really should be thought about is that you're here using those tools to gladden the mind. It is okay the way things are right now, that you become satisfied with the way things are right now. This is the way that we begin to look at it. Is that yeah? Well, they this used to be a bumper sticker back in the '80s, and that is that life's a bitch, and then you die, and that
That's messed up.
uh-huh. And the Buddha's way of saying that is, yeah, life's a bitch. Take a look.
In
Mm.
what way do you look at that dissatisfaction once you have satisfaction?
Um, well, one way of starting to look at it is in the sense of instead of life's a bitch, it's that life sucks. And the reason life sucks is because we're the one who's doing the sucking. We got a tiny little straw, and not much nourishment comes through that straw. And so we want things that we don't have. We feel unfilled.
So
So this is,
desire and clinging.
yeah, there's desire and clinging and all of that because we're wanting things that we think we need and we're working really hard to get them.
So is the cure the letting go of the desire and clinging? Is that the path?
Yes, there's more refined ways of saying it, but that's exactly correct. You've already got this.
Okay.
You've just found a new obstacle to climb over, but you're already practicing. So now you know how to look at it a little differently. Oh, we got to get ourselves into a state of satisfaction because there's no end to the dissatisfaction. We can create all kinds of boogeymen for ourselves, get downright magical about it.
Sure.
But if we are devoted to the truth and to figuring out things as they are and give ourselves credit for the successes that we can have, then confidence builds. And so you've already started to practice anapanasati. You know you've got that skill. So now is the time to apply it. Okay, I can do this too. I can come out of my misery about whatever it is I don't like and become satisfied that I have come out of that misery without having to solve the problem. In other words, now you know that there's nothing to be gained, there's nothing there. Now, if last, you don't have to do anything more. There's no goal worth doing. There's nothing worth clinging to. as a goal. So we can sit down and take a rest, take a breather.
So, like dependent co-origination, and is that what it's teaching as well? Just in
Yes.
a different manner in terms of the
Um,
six senses.
I can actually take what we're talking about and put it within the context of or the language of Paticca Samuppada. And that is in the sense of learning to take control, or to take management of our feelings, so that at the point of contact, the feelings are wise feelings. Before they were ignorant feelings of I like it, therefore I want it,
Mhm.
or I don't like it, therefore I want to get rid of it, or what the heck is this, which are the three primary feelings, confusion. And so that confusion is not a good feeling, and it's not a bad feeling. It's a confused feeling.
That's what I struggle with in terms of the path.
Okay, but when you become wise to those feelings, then you can take control of them, so you can bring your mind back to a state of satisfaction, which could also be called equilibrium.
Do you like the word equanimity?
Well, I was pointing in that direction.
Oh.
Kind of difficult to have any equilibrium if you're not satisfied. So long as you feel out of balance, then you are. So you have to feel stable, and that stability also has a feeling of security, and security has the uh, let us say the base of that feeling of security is what we would call fearlessness.
So if I have fear, doubt, anxiety coming, and then I become aware, the momentum of it normally is, obviously you continue with it and you worry about it. But if I turn awareness and catch it, then I don't have to go down that path. I choose relaxation and satisfaction, deep breathing, which feels really nice. And then I just don't go back to that. And that's the path.
Keep going back, exactly. And the way that we do that is through sati. Wakey, wakey, wake up.
Mm-hmm.
See what you're feeling, see what you're thinking, and decide that you can choose to do it differently. I think you've heard me talk about it before in the sense of, aha, I see you. Once we wake up, we can see it. When actually there's a source of that, and that's exactly what the Buddha was saying in the sense of, and his quote is, aha, I see you, Mara. And that Mara is actually the second noble truth, or the cause of suffering. And Mara has three daughters: greed, ill will, and delusion. And those three, greed, ill will, and delusion, have roots in the feelings of I like it, I don't like it, and I don't know what it is. And so that's at the root of it all. And this is also right there in the middle of Paticca Samuppada, or Paticca Samuppada. And so feelings, that's the point, is to figure out how you feel. Figure out what your motives are, because they are sometimes somewhat subliminal or hard to see, microscopic in a way, but they're like the seed that sprouts the tree. The tree is sometimes really hard to dig up, but the seed is sometimes really easy to pick up. All you have to do is see it.
So Paticca Samuppada is looking at the cause of whatever is arising.
Yes, that's what the word dependent origination means, is cause effect, cause effect.
And that gives you knowledge to why something is.
It gives you the sequence of events so that you understand then how the mind works in this sequence. And by doing so, the stronger the sati, the faster we are, the sooner we can catch it. That means the earlier in the process we can back it up to. But the place that's most important is this wisdom at the point of contact, so that we know how we feel, so that we can take control of how we feel. And this is precisely what we're doing in Anapanasati. When sati comes, we gladden the mind, because that gladdening the mind is, in fact, changing the way that we feel. That most humans are in the habit of feeling bad. Very few people are in the habit of feeling good. Why is that? But more to the point, can you change your attitude in life so that you feel good most of the time and don't feel bad so often, or hardly at all?
It's a very powerful thing humans have, that they can decide how to feel. It's when that was like shown, I was like, this solves pretty much every problem, in the sense of,
Mhm.
if I'm fearful
Just
of
about.
dying, I can pick not to be fearful, right?
Precisely. But that
Huh.
takes self-knowledge. We have to know what we're doing. And knowing means we have to wake up. That's what Buddha actually means, is awakening. So it's closely associated with sati. Sati is actually the skill of awakening. And so that's why we practice it over and over and over and over again. Keep bringing it back and bringing it back and bringing it back. And as that happens, our awareness pool expands in time frame and in spatiality and all kinds of things.
By catching dissatisfaction and turn to satisfaction, you're training sati.
Training sati. Catching the mind wandering away and bringing it back to the here now.
And then what happens?
Then you enjoy the here now.
As
And then
sati
you,
develops,
and as it starts to develop, you begin to also develop the attitude of, I can do this. I can come back to a pleasant state anytime I want to.
and at some point that becomes the default.
The default hasn't come yet, but the decision that I can do this is there, which is basically a cub lion's roar. I can do this. I'm capable. No matter, and in the sutta that I'm thinking of, sutta number 48 in the Majjhima Nikaya, is that no matter how obstructed the mind gets, the student can clean the mind out and come to this present moment and see things the way that they are directly and see the truth. Then the Buddha says, this is the first knowledge. And this knowledge is supramundane and a factor of the path, and it's noble, and it is also not held by ordinary people. Most ordinary people do not have the faith, or the, let's say, the gut determination that they can handle any problem that comes.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what we're talking about. It doesn't matter how obstructed your mind gets. And which means that no matter what situation creates itself in reality in front of the mind, for the mind to get obstructed by, still, I can clean that mind out and bring my mind back to a pleasant state. That's the first knowledge. That's the first step of enlightenment. That's the first step to the noble path, is that determination that I can clean out the mind.
So does that mean there's more steps after gladdening the mind?
Yes, there are 7 steps to Sotapan, and then that's just the first step of the path.
Is there...
But it has to start with this, because it's a determined path that you're embarking upon. The determination to clean out your mind, the determination to have a strong heart, the determination to breathe deeply and enjoy your life, the determination to come out of your past and live the way you want to live.
But
feel the way you want to feel. Knowing that everything is empty. Nothing is fulfilling. Only you can fulfill. Nothing else can do it.
So why is there anything else after that? Why there...
Yeah, why do you want anything after that? Why isn't that good enough?
Because according to Buddha, Buddha Dasa, he's saying I must learn paticca samuppada, I must learn not self, I must learn, I'm still going through the book. So is there a single thing I am looking for other than satisfaction and letting go of clinging, letting go of the desire to solve dissatisfaction?
That would be then the next step in the process would be the right attitude. Okay, and what is that right attitude? The attitude of a winner.
Right.
The attitude of not just the winner, but the one who holds the prize, perhaps in the air. Okay, the loser is the one who feels inadequate and wants something, expecting more out of life. But for both the loser and the winner, the losing and winning is empty. But one enjoys it, and the other one is disappointed and affected by it. So here's another way of talking about it. I like this one. Every one of us, each individual one, is an emperor of their own pile of dirt. The question is, are you going to be buried under your pile of dirt? Are you going to struggle to get out of it, or are you going to sit on the top of it? Or I am sitting on top of it. Or here we are. Now that's a state of satisfaction. But the pile of dirt, or how heavy it is all still empty. It's an empty pile of dirt, in the sense that that's all it is, a pile of dirt.
So they're trying to decipher. I can stop stress, right? I can. Timelessness happens, right? When suffering goes away, the sense of time kind of like vanishes, and it's like, right, as I'm doing something, and I notice it when a desire happens, a desire to grab my phone, right? Sati kicks in, I pause, all of a sudden it's like time stops, and there's just timeless everywhere. So the satisfaction is very, very fulfilling.
Okay.
However, every time I read a meditation book, I listen to a meditation, or I'm reading the book from Buddha Dasa, they're saying no self. They're saying everything is a process. So then I try another technique, and I'm like, oh, yeah, everything is a process. Do I need to develop this way of seeing where there is no sense of self? And is that something I want? I mean, it feels nice when I do it. It's another kind of like nice feeling. There's all these things I can do that bring me nice feelings. And what's an arahant has that, a normal person wouldn't if they can just be satisfied with this. Is there a point in pursuing this?
There's no point in the label. The label Erald, there's no point in that. What's the point then? The point is to start enjoying yourself. Enjoy the moment. Why does everything have to be such a puzzle or a fight or whatever?
I mean, why did you spend 20 years meditating?
Pardon?
Why did you spend 20 years of meditating?
Until I learned how. After I learned how, I didn't see much in it anymore.
So can I stop?
I would like to help students learn to meditate so they don't need it anymore.
Once the momentum picks up, sati is easily available in the sense that all you have to do is watch what the body does for, like any kind of clinging. It's like an automatic thing. Like I gotta grab the door or I gotta grab my phone. And then when you pause that, for some reason, like awareness just frees up. It's like a tangled knot. And it just fills the whole room and space, and you can breathe. And it's just a very like water on a fire.
Who is this? The Metastopheles? Is that who you said?
No, it's just a feeling. Like if I stop the desire to do something immediately. So if I do something unconsciously, if I catch it and I relax that, then awareness opens up.
Yes.
Complete. It's a crazy feeling. It's almost like you're on absolute vacation. Like you're in the Bahamas and you've been there for like a month. Just from catching yourself doing something and just stopping that and relaxing.
That's an interesting way to describe it, but I understand what you're saying exactly. And I'm basically saying, ta-da, or duh.
Is that it?
That's it. Yeah, you can do that. The question is, can you get yourself into that state anytime you want to?
Yes. Is
that the answer? Yes, you can, huh?
When I have some a little bit of warm-up practice, yes.
Okay, so now we got to get some warm-up practice, which is what I would be calling right effort. And that's the right effort to get the mind joyful. The effort that it takes to get our mind off of whatever it was on, bring it back to the breath, take a few breaths, and begin to feel satisfied. This is good. And along the way, we're saying, I see you, Mara. I see you. Okay? And so if it's anger, I see you, anger. If it's doubt, I see you, doubt. If it's a feeling, I see you, feeling. If it's a thought, I see you. This is the whole point, is that wake up and that acknowledgement that I can see it now, which means in a way that we've pulled ourselves out of it, that we are no longer that thing.
Slave.
We're something else outside of it that's looking into it from the outside. I see you, anger, now from the outside.
So you're not becoming it.
Exactly. Not becoming. Or maybe we could call it unbecoming. That would be unbecoming. So that's a good way of looking at it. Is we become that thing, and when we have wisdom at the point of contact, we can recognize, no, it's the feelings that draw us into that becoming, and that we can choose to feel the way that we want to. We can be unbecoming instead. Pull out. Aha, I see you. And that is also almost time for the Alka-Seltzer commercial. The one, pop, pop, fizz, fizz. Oh, what a relief it is. That, okay, that's what we're looking at, is the relief that comes from having cleaned the mind out. That I don't have to think about that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
And that's part of the gladdening the mind, is the relief that we feel from being free from the very storm that we had been brewing.
It's very quenching.
Quenching. That's exactly a good way of speaking about it. In fact, I have heard Santikaro use that very word when he's talking about nibbana, which is that cooling off. Just to cool off, because we've taken, let us say, good old whatever it is, out of the oven. Like a pizza comes out of the oven, it's got to cool off first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, or when something comes hot out of the wok, it needs to cool a little bit before you can eat it. So that's what we're looking for here, is just a little nibbana, just a little cooling off that we're going to do over and over and over and over again. And so the more we do it, the cooler we get.
Do we care about things like cessations, no self, all this?
Those are thoughts, though. And the better thing to think about is what's happening right now to the body, what's happening to the breathing, what's happening to the way the mind
Emotions.
is working.
Mm-hmm.
Is the mind sharp? Is it dull? Another one would be, is it being gladdened? So we start to do kind of an investigation, and that the actual investigation we do then becomes that we give the investigation in the form of thought, so that we're noting what's going on. And so the thinking that we're doing is the investigation that we're doing. In a way, we're controlling the thoughts like that, and we don't allow them to wander away from what's happening right now.
Interesting. So you're in this almost a hyper-aware state, a very relaxed, open space where you can see stress and it pretty much melts away. And what you're doing is then you're kind of looking at sensations. Is that what you meant?
I would say then, once we get into the state of satisfaction, that then that becomes kind of a prize worth keeping. And so we begin to work on maintaining this. In fact, this is part of the instruction that Buddha gives about this, is to learn to maintain it. This is what we mean by applied and sustained thought. Another way of talking about it is begin to guard the mind, to be on guard for what the mind is doing.
You're saying maintain the satisfaction, make sure it doesn't
Maintain the
leave it.
satisfaction, and maintain so that you don't leave that satisfaction, which means you're now not going to allow anything into the mind that would pull you out of a state of satisfaction. We're going to sustain this satisfaction.
That state lasts a while if it is like, it could
But
be
then
20,
what?
30 minutes, an hour, and then I guess I
Okay,
get what you're saying. I got to
so
apply the patience.
and then you get out of it.
Gotcha.
Okay, so how did that happen? And for beginners, that's actually quite good. So now we need to practice in getting ourselves back into that state of sukha. And then after that, learn to maintain it. But getting into it over and over and over again until you get full on confidence that I can do this.
At some point, it becomes almost like within a second, right? It's like
Can do. Absolutely.
I
Can
feel
do it in and
fantastic.
out breath. Just right, just the one of the expression is um the time that it takes to stretch out your arm.
Yes. Yeah. And it's funny you say that because that's what I was going to say. It's the time it takes for me to grab my phone without realizing it. That's when I know the feeling's gone. If it's a habit, then I'm like, oh, I paused it. And then all of a sudden, like, the quenching, the satisfaction
Mm.
just rushes back in where the lost thought and, that habitual
Okay,
pattern kicked in.
excellent. So now that we're beginning to get some good practice in, taking it back to that existential angst that we started with in this conversation is to look at that deep uh, uh, I was starting to use abiding, but I need another word for it, enduring or pesky. This pesky feeling that we have that there's something missing, there's something wrong. Uh, but when
Those
we
are
have,
thoughts, right?
pardon,
You were right. Those are just thoughts that I've read something and I think, well, maybe this is not it. Doubt.
okay. So yes, it can be expressed in many different ways, but the basis of it is uh, dissatisfaction with the present moment because underneath there, someplace, the ground is not steady. In other words, something is still dangerous, something's amiss. This house I live in is too shaky. Um, that I could lose my most prized possession immediately. And so this is kind of an unsettled feeling that everyone has. That's in fact the source of religion. If everybody felt comfortable and happy, then we wouldn't need religions. In fact, religions are supposed to get us back to this state.
Yeah.
It doesn't do a very good
Of
job of
safety.
it, but the stories they tell. So the way that we practice this through Anapanasati then means that we're beginning to see what's going on, and by seeing that, we begin to control the thoughts and dividing them first into two different groups: thoughts that are wholesome, and wholesome is defined here as that which will help keep us in this state of satisfaction. And unwholesome thoughts will be the kind of thoughts that will take us out of this state of satisfaction. And so now we begin to work with the mind in that guarding system to make sure that the thoughts that we have are wholesome. And by keeping the thoughts wholesome, that will keep this steady state of satisfaction going, giving more and more confidence and more assurity that you can do this. Keep practicing, and we're getting good at it so that we now have good confidence that we can get into this state anytime we want to. Which means basically now, anytime we can remember to.
Sure. So is there any benefit to me continue reading under the Bodhi tree? I mean, what it instills in me is, you know, well, this satisfaction is nice, right? Am I missing something else? It's like, you know, now I got to learn about kalisas and sense contact. I got to catch it before feeling arises, because the self arises after clinging. Like, it's all this detailed information, or I could just be happy.
Well, here's a way of thinking about that. The Buddha at one point says that he teaches only one thing. He teaches only one thing, and he says both now and formerly, I've taught only one thing, and that is dukkha, dukkha nirodha. Okay? And that we can hold it for that. In fact, we can hold his feet to the fire on that one, that that's all there is. And now, by seeing it that way, we begin to take that apart. And the first thing we find is that dukkha is broken into two parts, and dukkha nirodha is brought into two parts, in the sense of suffering and the cause of suffering, identify suffering itself. And I'm using the word suffering when I really want to say dissatisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So dissatisfaction and its cause, and then the end of it and the path to the end. Now, the path to the end, most people think of you got to go down the path a long way before you get to the end. But in this regard, no, the end of the path is being on the path. Getting onto the path is the end of the path.
Really? Wow.
And sometimes we're not on the path, we're in a ditch. So all we have to do is get back on the path. But we got to get out of the ditch to get back on the path. And the getting out of the ditch requires right effort.
For sure.
Okay?
That's interesting.
Okay? That the path is not a destination. The path is being able to be on the path.
That definitely makes things clearer, right? You don't have a step-by-step process that you need to do in order to get to first path, second path, all this. The path is the destination, I guess, as they say.
Well, the various stages that people go through is well known and well documented. And because of that, when the Westerners read it, they put it into expectations. But these things that are well known and well documented are actually normal processes that each and every human goes through, whether they're trying to go through them or not. But when we try to go through them, we often screw it up. When it happens naturally, that's better. Okay, so the much of the path has to do first with gaining knowledge about how things are, and including what value the world has and all of this. But that in order to get to these places, we need to get the mind fit for work. And to get the mind fit for work, it needs to come to this idea that, oh, well, I can make the mind fit for work anytime I want to. And so that's the first step of getting the mind fit for work requires that determination. I can do this. Even though it looks like that the mind is in turmoil right now for whatever reason, or something's got me by the throat. No, it doesn't. Take your cotton picking mutts off of me, and I'm good again. Okay, so nothing can grab you by the throat once you see it, which is actually then wisdom at the point of contact. You see what's going on. I see you. And once we get that and start to wake up over and over and over again, we can recognize that all of those past demons that we let control our lives in fact, can be controlled.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And that's been my experience as well. So does being on the path, I think when you say, first path, second path, and what's documented is the fetters. So being on the path naturally, just being in this state of complete satisfaction all the time, naturally progresses you.
I refuse. I'm reluctant to use the word all the time.
As long as sati's there.
Yeah, but rather whenever sati is there.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's the whole point of developing it as a skill, so that it keeps coming back and keeps coming back and keeps coming back. In that regard, it has the quality of unremitting mindfulness. No matter how things get bad, I'm going to wake up.
That happiness is addicting in the sense that once you got it, it's easy to maintain. But when you don't have it, you're like, oh, I gotta get to it. Even though it doesn't take long, right? You think it takes some effort, and then once you're in there, like, what was I thinking? Why would I pick that over this?
Yes, that's exactly it. And that gains confidence.
Yeah.
That confidence, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this.
Mhm.
And that confidence builds as the sati builds. The better the sati, the faster you can catch things, then the easier the path comes.
Right.
And so this is actually the teaching of Paticca Samuppada is that as the mind gets sharp, it's able to catch those feelings as they arise so that we can turn them into the feelings we want to. And the kind of feeling that we want to have is associated with with having the attitude of a winner. We feel like a winner. We feel successful. We feel like we can do this. The Buddha talks about it. We feel like a lion. I can do this.
Yeah.
I can handle this life.
Forget reading
Make it
self-help
beautiful.
books.
Huh?
Forget reading self-help books. When you can enter this state, it's
That reminds me of a George Carlin joke.
what is it?
He says, why should I go into a bookshop and buy a book on self-help? I just help myself into the bookshop. So I'm going to slam the book down on the corner, onto the counter to the clerk and says, no, thank you. I don't need a book on self-help. I just help myself. And he walks out.
I like it. I like it. That's funny.
And so, yeah, that's how self-help books are. Now, one of the things that gives them the appearance of actually working is because while people are reading the book, they feel really
Satisfied.
good.
Yeah.
Then they have to say to themselves, "Oh, I've got to try that." But after they finish reading the book, they'll put it on the shelf, and then they don't practice. If they practice what the book teaches, then it would be a self-help book. Because the self-help book at best can only give good advice, and it doesn't actually even matter what topic it is or what the book is about. Even books on meditation and Buddhism are really only books.
Sure. I know we're being recorded. I don't want to be crude, but there's a phrase called mental masturbation, where you read something, you're like, yes, this, I got it. You're in that fully satisfied state. And then you just made yourself happy, and then you go back to normal, your daily life, and like, oh, nothing, it wasn't permanent. It wasn't, what did I do wrong?
Exactly. The idea then is that you did work yourself up into a state of satisfaction, but you couldn't keep it. So here we're being very scientific about it, of doing it over and over and over and over again with the intention that as we do it and get into that state over and over and over again, we begin to allow it to linger and linger longer and longer because we're not allowing things into the mind that kept it from being there. Now, this is a major part of the practice. Actually, it's so major that it's step 2 of a 7-step process that winds you up the first step.
I don't like steps.
Okay, well, let's call it the 7 knowledges. That there are 7 individual knowledges that lead to the state of Sotapan, which makes the mind noble. It's not completely pure yet, but he sure knows how to do it. And it's intention to do that.
you said
Okay?
you said that's soda pond.
Mm-hmm.
So it's you're saying there is something more, right, than just being the state of satisfaction for the rest of your life.
Actually, let's turn that back around and say if you got to the state where you were satisfied with everything, then whether you wear a particular label or not becomes irrelevant, now doesn't it?
Correct.
All right.
As soon as I think of the word sotapan or sakadagami, stress arises.
Okay. All
right. Because I don't know how
these are just actual steps along the path or along the way. This is it's laid out. This is exactly the way to go, which makes it fairly easy to teach once a student has been down the path.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some basics that we have to get down, and that first basic point is you have to get the mind so cleaned over and over and over again that it builds the confidence that you know that you can do this. Now, this is in fact the Eightfold Noble Path, and in the following way. The first one is that we have an intellectual understanding, and that's right view. But as we progress, that right view will get refined. It'll get higher, better, broader, etc. But we start with the right view, and so we begin to practice correctly. And what we practice mostly is sati, to wake up, to wake up, to wake up. Then we begin to practice right effort, which has that quality of I see you. I see you, Myra. I see you, which separates us out. That's the effort that it takes. But then that builds joy, and then the joy culminates into a right attitude. So now we have the first 4 factors of the path, all of them skills to be developed. And as we develop the path factor of right attitude, that right attitude is that can-do attitude. I can do this. I can do it. I'm capable. Beyond a doubt. Okay. Which brings us then to the area of the word doubt and what that often, or let us say, how we use this in this context. And that is in the beginning, the first kind of doubt that people have is the doubt that can be expressed in the following phrase of, who made this mess? Who's responsible for this mess of my life? Who can I get to help me out? Where is my Savior? Where is my medico? Where is my psychologist? Where is my Jesus? I'm looking for an out. In other words, the beginning of seeing dukkha then brings in the doubt of, who made this mess, this dukkha that I see, because I didn't make it, not my fault.
You're saying this is outside the state of satisfaction, right?
Right. Well, no, I'm saying that this is the first layer of doubt that people have to work through. The first layer of doubt that every individual has to go through is, who's going to clean up this mess? Can I get somebody else? Can I hire someone? Can I get a lawyer? Can I get a doctor? Can I get somebody to help me?
Right.
How much is this going to cost? Okay. Those are the kind of thoughts that everyone has. And when the doubt is eradicated, we're left then with the only one who can do it. No one can help you but you. Up to you.
Sure.
And the way that we come to understand that is through the second noble truth, in the sense of this moha doba losa, or this tanha, this clinging. It's me that's doing the clinging. And the only way to let go is for me to let go. And then we begin to understand part of the nature of the self is that the self is the problem, not the solution. And so this is how we begin to experience things, through investigation. So we keep investigating and keep investigating. And as we do that, our view grows. But our investigation also has the quality of seeing what's going on, understanding the way that the mind works. And that
Investigating the self.
investigating the self and where it arises and why it leads to suffering or dukkha. And so this stuff is worth thinking about. This would in fact be in the world of right thought. But that means that we've got to get ourselves into a good state of satisfaction so that we work this stuff through. Most of the time we get stuck somewhere along the way, take a side trip off into nowhere land that's easier to deal with than the basic foundational issues, which are the Four Noble Truths, of really digging down into it. Because that second noble truth, nobody likes it. Nobody wants to be responsible. Everybody wants to have an out, an easy way out, and there's no easy way out.
So I'm responsible for the clinging.
I'm responsible for what's happening. I'm the mess that I made.
Yeah.
Okay, so now it comes to the second layer of doubt. And the second layer of doubt is, well, am I up to the task or not? What a big deal this is. Can I really clean this place out? Me? Little old me? Throw a little victimhood in there and we're good to go as a failure. Okay? But that's the change of attitude that we need now, is that eradication of that second doubt through continuing to see the success, that I can do this. I can clean out the mind. I can do it.
The state of satisfaction almost covers what you're saying, because there's a sense of timelessness, and what comes with timelessness is the ability to do anything, because you don't have the rush, like I need to finish this, I need to get this done. In timelessness, in the state of satisfaction, you can do anything because there's time to do everything.
There's always now. That's one of the things that's really weird about now, is it doesn't go away. We do.
That's a good point.
So the now is always here, and that's all the time that anyone has, is right now. And if we choose to do wholesome things with our nows, then we'll enjoy our life. And if we do unwholesome things, which we're in the habit of doing already, then our life is not nearly so joyful and pleasant. And part of then the problem is wanting it to be better rather than seeing that it's actually good enough right now.
Absolutely.
The problem is not that your life it sucks, is that we're doing the sucking. All we have to do is stop
Stop
sucking, and
sucking.
life doesn't suck anymore.
Okay. Well, I gotta take my dog out.
All right.
I do apologize. It is late here. I do have work in the morning. Um,
I hear him. Yes, he's talking to
Come
you.
here. Yeah, he's a husky. He's a pretty boy. Come here. Wanna be on camera? He's a good boy. Um, okay, so I will continue practicing this satisfaction, this state of just timelessness and fulfillment. And from there, we'll have another discussion. But you're saying I should look at the cause of suffering from that state,
Mm-hmm.
and not just enjoying my life because it feels so good, everything is great in that state. I should use that in a skillful way to see why do I keep falling out of that state.
Precisely. Yes. Okay. Let's go with that.
Thank you so much, Dhammarato.
Okay. We'll see
Stay
you
healthy.
later. When are you
Thanks.
going to call again?
Can I call you next week? Is that okay?
Sure. That'll be good.
I enjoyed this conversation a lot, so thank you for kind of like putting everything in a frame.
Okay. Well, we'll see you then.
Bye bye.